And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the things that I talked with my team about, because I think every team probably needs to refocus on these things every now and again. Everyone is focused on the things that are important. Now, of course, if these things aren't important to you, then don't get your team focused on them. But if this resonates with you, if you think that your patient experience is very important to you, if you want to provide exceptional customer service to your patients, especially so that they'll tell other people to also come and see you, and if you want your team to really be driven to work well together, and to see each other in a positive light and all of those good things, then I'm going to touch on a few of those things today. I'm not going to dive into any of them super deep because I don't want this video to be an hour long. Nobody wants to watch something that long. So I'm going to skim the surface here and give you the highlights of the things that we spoke about today. Now, one of the very first questions I asked the team today when we started the workshop was how they felt about the place where they work right now, meaning our practices, versus other places that they've worked in the past. And the reason I ask questions like this sometimes is that it does illuminate for everyone some of the differences that you can see in workplaces, but usually also really highlights the things we're doing really well. And it's always important to talk about those things because those will be the reasons why people really like working where they are now versus maybe in places they've worked before. And of course, one of the big things that came up was that in many of the workplaces that many of these women have worked in, it was very difficult to talk to people that were seen as managers or tiers above them. So they weren't really given, it wasn't okay, for as an example, admin to talk to clinical team, or you weren't allowed to talk to the doctor or bother the doctor. And if you did, you were always reprimanded or made to be wrong or shamed or something like that. And so a lot of it was around communication, feeling safe at work, being allowed to ask questions, the whole mean girl clique drama situation that can help in many practices, and how oftentimes in the places that they worked in the past, there was really no effort being made by the people in charge, the people making decisions, the people with the power to make sure that the team felt cohesive, and that we were working always on their relationships with each other, because of course that helps everybody to do their job better. And then we talked a little bit about what are the things that myself as a practice owner have worked really hard at and put in place over the years to make it a place where resoundingly the entire team feels comfortable asking anyone a question, comfortable asking anyone for help. Like they can come to the doctors about anything that they need to, like they will never be shamed or made wrong. And a lot of that, of course, as you know, if you've been following me for any period of time, has all been very intentional. But the foundation of that for me, and always will be, and I'll always be talking about it, is that one of the very first things I did when I wanted to change my practice from the least fun place I was hanging out to the most fun place I was hanging out was to implement communication rules. Meaning there are rules and guidelines in our practice about how we are allowed to communicate with one another and our patients, and the things that we think are important in our communication. And so we have 8 rules and we talk about them constantly, and we all do our best every day. We're not perfect to abide by them. And that has built the culture of the practice. And here is a great piece of information. I then asked the team, since they've all been with us for at least a little while, they all understand that this is the foundation of how we have the culture that we have. But I asked them, based on all of their experience and other jobs they've had and people they know, if they thought it would ever be possible to work in a workplace that is as happy, collegial, collaborative, and teamwork oriented as our practice is without communication rules in place. And every single one of them, even the people who've only been with me for 2 months, said no, because their biggest breakdowns, frustrations, and reasons they left previous places of employment often had to do with communication. And that it was allowed and okay for people to not treat each other kindly and well, as an example, and that none of them believed that they could be in an environment like the one that we work in every day if there weren't communication guidelines in place in some capacity. And I agree with them. That's why I talk about it so much. I think it's very hard to have a culture of teamwork. And for us, it's a lot about, it's like joy and fun too. If we don't have guardrails up for everyone about how we are allowed to communicate. It's not that we're not allowed to say negative things. One of the rules is positive communication, but everything comes from a place of solution finding. Nothing ever comes from a place of blame. And our 8 rules, which I'm sure some of you heard me talk about, and I'll keep talking about them, make all the difference in how we show up each and every day. And it helps us to be a cohesive team. We talked a little bit about team today. We talked about our team motto, which is I'm on your side. And to remind everybody that no one in the office is ever intentionally trying to make someone else's day crap. or crappy or more difficult than it needs to be. We're all doing the best we can every day, and we need to keep that in mind so that we have some patience with one another. We're willing to ask good questions, and never to assume anything, because if you assume, you're pretty much wrong 100% of the time. So instead, we just ask some questions. We're curious, like, hey, are we okay? Or, hey, I can sense that you're a little bit upset about something. Is there something I did? Could I make it better? Things like that. And again, these are all easy, basic, common sense communication tools. But a lot of people just don't know how to use them and haven't been taught how to use them and don't understand how important they are. So we kind of touched on teamwork first, and then we dove into new patient experience. Now, I think this is critical for any dental practice and for sure in any specialty practice. Your very first touch points with your new patients are going to make or break you. And we all rely, of course, on a steady flow of new patients and people accepting the treatment we present to them in order for the practices to grow and thrive and be whatever it is that we want them to be. So we spend a lot of time focusing on the details of the new patient experience because it's very, very important to us that new patients get the experience that we want them to have. And the number one thing, as we talked to the group for many, many hours about many, many things, is that the very best way to impress a new patient is to exceed their expectations. Now, do we know what everyone's expectations are? No, it's impossible to know that. But when you do something that is above and beyond what was expected by that person or by the average person, it is more likely that they will like and trust you more, but it's also more likely that they are going to tell other people about the exceptional experience they had. It doesn't have to be necessarily something you give them or a discount that you give them. It doesn't have anything to do with money or anything like that. It usually is about how they feel or that you surprised them in a very nice way somehow. And so there are lots of things we do to try to get this effect. And the best example I give is from the book I read that actually gave me the idea around communication rules and how we curate our new patient experience. Is he talks about, I think, a hotel where down at the pool, there's a phone. It's called the ice cream phone. And anyone can pick up the phone anytime they want and order ice cream, and then ice cream shows up poolside for you. And people just loved it and talked about it because it was different. It was something that they had never seen before at a hotel pool. And it was just super cool that like the kids could get on the phone and just order some chocolate ice cream, and then chocolate ice cream would show up, or maybe it was Freezies or whatever. I don't know. But like they could order something at the pool and it would just come through this, special little magical phone. And so it's often the little touches that can make all the difference. It doesn't have to be something that costs you more money. It can be the words you use with people. It can be the time you spend with them. But I would say most people have certain expectations around what they expect a dental visit to be like. That they love being pointed out and being made special. And then, they got their little chocolate in there that they can eat, and a little gift card to go, do something fun. And so that is something that I'm pretty sure most offices aren't doing, as an example. Now, where I'm an orthodontist, if you didn't know, I'm an orthodontist. So we probably see anywhere between 8 and 15 new patients in a day. And so the experience of those patients, of course, is very important because in orthodontics, we're usually just presenting comprehensive care. So we've got like one shot at this. They come in, we hope they start same day, we follow up with them until they start, or we follow them grow if they don't need treatment quite yet. But that first impression is highly important to us because there are lots of any other offices they can go to in the city. And I would say that's true for anybody. If you impress people at the beginning, it'll be a little harder to disappoint them. That goes from your phone call all the way through them leaving, that very first appointment. And so I encourage all of you to really take a close look at how you are treating all of your new patients that come in, from that phone call, the words that are being used, the tone on the phone, how quick those calls are being answered, how quick you're responding to people, like all of those things, they're all important. The energy you're giving off, the vibe you're giving off. We talked to our reception team today a little bit about the words they're using, saying things like, oh my God, you're going to love Dr. Jen. She's totally awesome. Or Dr. Dina, or Dr. Wendy, so there's 3 of us, but using words to help influence people subconsciously about how they feel about you, because it works. And you can say it in a genuine manner and it can actually make a difference. So there are so many places or touch points where you could make teeny tiny small changes to what you're doing, what you're saying, that will influence how people feel about you and will make them feel like you exceeded their expectations, like it was more or better than they expected. And that sentence we talked about all day is, can we be more or better than expected? How do we think we can do that? And after we talked about new patient experience, we then linked that to customer service in general, because those two go hand in hand as well. But we don't want to abandon all of our other patients once they're no longer a new patient. Customer service, we all decided, exceptional customer service comes down to making sure that people are heard and understood and feel special, that our communication with them is phenomenal, that we are also giving them more than they expected, that we are willing to be flexible. We made huge lists of adjectives and all the things that were what we thought were great customer service. And then we also made a list of, the opposite. What are the things that are bad customer service? People feeling dismissed, or shamed or like you just don't care. All of those things, we all related it back to experiences we had had with any business that made us feel yucky about that business versus made us feel like, wow, I want to go back there again. This is a place I will happily give my money to, or a place I will happily return to, or I will happily tell other people to go to as well. And you guys can all do this with your teams too. Brainstorm the experiences you've had in your life that were where a service was being provided to you, where it went exceptionally well in your mind or exceptionally poorly in your mind, and then figure out what was it that made it so exceptionally well or good, or what was it that made it so exceptionally bad? And then check yourself and see at your practice if there are ways you can incorporate those things that make it amazing, or you can limit the things that make it not so amazing. Now, no one can be amazing 100% of the time, but if we're always working towards that end and we have skills and training and resources available to help everybody go to that end, you do just get better and better over time until it's just kind of naturally the way you operate when you're at work, which is pretty awesome. I will say at the end of the day, after we brainstormed and came up with a few initiatives and refocused everybody on what's important, they all know that if we don't have enough new patients, they don't have a job. We're very open about that, not in a mean way, but if we don't have new patients coming in, if the practice isn't growing, then our team is our most expensive overhead expense. So that means less people get to work there if we can't afford to keep everybody. And so refocusing everyone on what's important and making sure that we're all working together as a team towards end goals. I find after we have one of these, always everything feels amazing for a while because communication between all the different people in the office is better. People are all focused on the right things, feeling really good about it, energy's up. And that's why we can't stop talking about these things, because even though everyone feels good about it and is on the same page and whatever, if we didn't talk about or touch on any of those things for, I don't know, 60 days, 90 days, maybe sometimes 30 days, things start to slide because people naturally will always fall into whatever their natural tendency is, right? What's their natural way of being? What's their natural way of showing up? If we don't have rules, guidelines, goals, systems, steps, like all of these things where there is a roadmap to success, there is people held accountable to following that roadmap, meaning conversations happen when they need to happen, and we're not revisiting all of the things we said we were going to do, then those things don't happen. And they never can, because people will always slide back into what's normal and natural for them if they're not held accountable to a different standard or a different way of doing things or any of that. There's just no way for it to be different. And if you've ever experienced where you got all excited about something or went to a conference or learned something from someone or read it in a book and you're like, oh my God, we're going to do this. And everyone's all like, yeah, that sounds great. And then you realize 3 months later or 6 months later that you're not actually doing any of that stuff that you got excited about. That's usually why. If we stop talking about it, if we don't revisit it, if we don't hold people accountable to the changes that we're making, if we don't have buy-in from the team, if we haven't adequately trained, I mean, there's so many steps to this, it could just fall apart. And then it still feels like we're doing the same old, even though we have good ideas and better ideas and things that we can do. Now, my one point of caution here, if this got you excited about something and now you're like, oh, we need to change a few things, awesome. I say good luck to you. Don't try to change too many things at once. Today, when we had our groups, reception making some plans, clinical assistants making some plans, and our TCs, an ops manager making some plans, we limited it to 2 initiatives. So each group can take on 2 initiatives. They've got to have a plan for it, how they're going to hold each other accountable, and then how we're going to review and measure success. And when we do that, we limit to 2 because you really can't change well more than probably 1 or 2 things at a time. We stuck with things that were what we thought would be simple and the most impactful. And once those have become habit and everyone's got them and there's no training or question about it, then we can add more things. That might mean in 60 days, that might mean in 90 days, that might mean in 6 months. It will depend on the initiative and how everybody's doing with it. And then we've set checkpoints. Every team meeting for the next 3 team meetings, we're going to touch on all of those initiatives and see how everybody's doing and then see if we need to change things or whatever. But we're always going to be talking about it. There's a lead person for each initiative to make sure that they are the cheerleader. So I say they're in charge, but it's actually the cheerleader, where they are going to be like, hey guys, how are we doing with this? We all said we're going to work on this, and being the one to help hold people accountable to whatever it is that the change is going to be. I say it all the time. I'm going to say it one more time. You can have any type of practice that you want, any type of vibe or culture, any type of size, any type of income, any type of structure. There is no one right or wrong way to do anything. If you define what you want, then you can build it. And all it takes is some skills and some tools and some time and often some patience to get you there. But I started with, I would call it a less than ideal practice, and created a vision for what I wanted, and then have taken the steps to change it over time. And I absolutely love, like I really do, absolutely love where I work. I love the team I work with. I love what we've built. It's a lot of work, but it's so much fun and absolutely worth it. And so don't ever doubt yourself. The people who have what you think you want are not special. They're not just lucky. Um, they've just learned a few things. Maybe a few things you haven't learned yet. Maybe they have some strengths that you need to work on a little bit, but all of it just comes down to skills, tools, and strategies. I mean, that's it. You need to know what you need to know. You need to be able to implement. You need to be able to learn a few things sometimes. You need to practice a few skills sometimes. And like all of us can do all of it. Women have a tendency to doubt ourselves, especially if we feel like we don't know everything about everything. Um, uh, you are absolutely capable. If you got through flipping dental school, you are absolutely capable of building whatever type of business or practice that you want. You absolutely are. Is it hard to do it on your own? Yeah. That's kind of why I do stuff like this, because I've always had mentors and helpers and all of that over my career. And I think it's helped me grow leaps and bounds and much faster than I could on my own. There is some value in learning from people who have already done. Could you do it by yourself? Sure. Like, absolutely. I totally think you can. It might just take longer, but you absolutely can. But you can have everything that you want. So define that and then freaking go get it and get whatever help you need along the way. If there's something you want me to talk about, if there's a conversation you want to have about your practice, as I say all the time, I am open to all conversation. You can DM me anytime. You can email me anytime. I'm sending you guys emails all the time. You can always reply back. And if you ever want to know how to work with me, because of course I do have paid programs, I have group coaching, I have online curriculum, I've got all kinds of fun stuff. If you ever want to work with me or you're curious about how I work with people and how I help them with their practices, by all means, reach out. I'm always happy to tell you. I'm not here to pressure anybody, but when you reach out, I'm happy to tell you what I can do and how I help. And, then we go from there. Otherwise, I will be back next week on Wednesday, and I'm not sure what we will talk about. It may be whatever strikes my fancy, unless one of you beautiful ladies sends me an awesome topic that I haven't thought of, and then I will talk about that one for sure. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.